Hello, everybody. Welcome. As promised and as scheduled, I have Dr. Nicole Joseph here today. I'm Teresa Robinson. I'm the Director of Secondary Education at Elmhurst University. And in that position, I prepare teachers to teach for their intended licensure area. But today I'm coming to you as a science specialist and a STEM specialist curriculum and instruction to introduce to you our guest and have a chat with you about how to attract more students to STEM education. So that's why we're here today. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Nicole Joseph from Vanderbilt University, who will also be our keynote speaker on Saturday for the Cultivating Minds conference. I'm so excited about that we found her and she agreed to come speak to us in the small little Midwest community and grace us with her expertise. You've been doing big things.
Well, I'm just trying to fulfill my purpose on this earth.
Okay. And
so you either go big or go home.
I heard that. So what is that? What's that purpose?
I think the purpose is to understand and translate, all this big fancy research that we do, as professors in higher ed, to translate that into language and actions and steps for, Black girls and other, underrepresented students in, mathematics and STEM. And that takes a lot of work. This is village work. This is work for the culture. This is work we have to do together. It's not solo sage on the stage.
Right. Absolutely. So what are some of you've done extensive research and writing and speaking. I see you all over the place during this time of social upheaval, especially with the pandemic that we were experiencing on two fronts. One being, a virus, and the other being racism. Specialist, as someone who's spent your career studying the research and the literature, as well as being a practitioner, because you've done that also. Let's be clear, you are not someone who's just studied this. You've actually worked, as you said, in it. So what are some of the barriers that you see for students from racial minority groups as it relates to participation in STEM?
Dr. Robinson, there's several barriers, actually. And I think we can probably categorize those barriers into big structural kinds of barriers. Sometimes there's individual barriers. And so, for example, the way that I think society and people who, are in charge of talking about what STEM education looks like, they often say, well, underrepresented minorities kids, they're just not prepared. They're not coming to college, with the right courses or, with the right material, or maybe they come from families that don't care about education. And so what happens is, these people are saying these things without thinking about what are the conditions or the sort of factors that are underlying these things. So let me give you an example. So when people say, oh, well, they're not prepared. Well, when you look at K-12 education, we start as early as third grade tracking. Okay. So we all know, all y'all been tracked and when you was in high school and middle school. So what that means, they try to be cute and say the red robins and the yellow jaybirds, those little groups in third grade. And so the tracking starts as early as that. And so when we're not working in solidarity and having conversations with families and parents about what does it mean that your child is not in algebra, for example, in 8th grade? What does that mean going forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I was sharing with someone that I had a student that was in the 12th grade. He was an athlete and he was just now taking algebra. So that really impacted his ability to be able to go on to particular colleges, right? Because of how he was tracked. So that's a structural type of barrier tracking. And we know from Jeannie Oakes' work that tracking, at the end of the day is bad. It is not helpful. It does not get students on the right path. But we continue to do it because we have a lot of parents that come from wealth that believe that their children should not be, watered down,
Or
right?
held back.
Or held back. Their kids don't deserve that. So, we continue these patterns, and these patterns are old as the dirt, but we continue to do it because we live in a society that values individualism,
Absolutely.
and, meritocracy, so they believe in those things. So those are, I think, some factors is that we have a structural system that really doesn't support underrepresented students to really get to where they need, in my opinion, in order to really sort of thrive. Let alone when you get a student that actually has made it through and actually gets to, you all, an undergraduate program, and want to major in mathematics or physics. Then you have like the culture of elitism in those spaces, and you have faculty, that just teach content rather than teach humans and student content. So then there's all kinds of things that happen there. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in my talk on Saturday. So, and then, people get discouraged. If you've been told for 12 years that you're not good at math or smart at math or science, then everybody's human, you begin to internalize those things.
Absolutely. I recently learned there's lower than 3rd grade that they're tracking in one of the local districts here that will go unnamed. And I thought, why would you track them that young? And it actually, you are on point. It was initiated and sustained through the parents.
Yeah.
So that, to that point, yes, and that tracking causes some problems, as you said in an earlier, conversation with us about the ability to make decisions for yourself in reference to the example of the athlete. You may not want to be a mathematician or a scientist, but you should have the opportunity to make your choice. And that was a takeaway. That was something that you said that that stuck with me. So let's talk about a little bit about, you were an educator. Tell us a little bit about your journey to and through the academy. How did you get where you're at?
Well, I can remember being in elementary school, and I'm actually writing a book coming out next year, and I opened my book with this sort of what do you call it, vignette. Mrs. Ellerante, rest her soul. I know she's gone and deceased at this point, but I was in her room, 3rd grade, and raising my hand. We were doing math, raising my hand, and she would never call on me. And unbeknownst to myself, my mom was actually one day standing outside of the classroom door. And to make a long story short, essentially, my mom was thinking that, she was being unfair, that she was being, a certain level of racist because she was calling on all of the other kids and not me. I ended up moving into Mr. Johnson's classroom. Mr. Johnson's classroom was the high level track horizon, I think it was called. And I flourished in that class and just fell in love with mathematics in that class. And then the rest, is sort of history. And I think, going into my undergraduate, where I majored in economics and mathematics, I wanted to be an economist, I thought. But after, just kind of being in that space and understanding that what economists actually do, I just decided that it really wasn't for me, that I wanted to teach. And so that's when I became a math teacher and then a math coach. And then I said, wow, I really want to research some of these questions that I was having, and decided to get my PhD. And then ended up in, higher ed when I finished in 2011. And it's just been a wonderful time to be able to research things that I care about, which, my research focuses really on Black girls, because no one is really studying their experiences in mathematics. And it's a very interesting intersection to think about. What does it mean to learn math as a Black girl in our public schools, from pre-K all the way up to, a doctorate in math. And so that's how I got here. And I love this work. I love this. It's struggle work, but it's also very rewarding because I get to connect and meet wonderful people like yourself and Dr. Brown, and just so many other folks that are also in this struggle with me. And so this is why I say it's community work. It's for the culture.
Right. So speaking of that transition, there was a period of time where you were in mathematics and economics, and you made a decision, I'm going to assume a conscious decision, to pursue education. There might be, I think there are many students out there who are in STEM or not, who may question, but never really make that conscious decision and go for it. Why is it a viable and rewarding career as a STEM educator?
I think because you get to support people's learning and, of these, different STEM, content spaces. I would love talking to my fifth graders. I would just look them in the eye and say, who told you that you were not smart in math? Who did that? And they looking at me because they never had a teacher to actually see their genius, see their potential, right? Now, did everybody pass the test? Of course not. But what they did have, I believed in portfolios, and I helped my children set goals, my students set goals, and to make determinations about what do I know about fractions or whatever it was, and what do I still need to know. And so it was a beautiful thing when I would sit down and do conferences, because the students really led those conferences and were able to articulate to their parents, what they knew and what they needed to do. So that just gives me joy, because I see that other people, folks that look like us, other Black and brown people, who get an opportunity to really see what's wonderful about mathematics, and how it's so useful in your life and what it can do for you, to, not just have make a lot of money or get another, get a cool job or whatever. But the type of thinking and the processes that I think learning mathematics and science can give you is really amazing, especially logic, critical thinking, those types of skills that you have to be trained around those things. That doesn't just come.
Exactly. It's a training. I love that you said that you helped your students. I think it's very progressive to think about a portfolio in math and having students take leadership in defending, if you will, their work, and to see their own progress. Because so many times, people will say, oh, well, you're just good at science. Or you probably heard that you're just good at math, but I actually had to work for this. I didn't just, all of a sudden know all these concepts and things. I actually had to work. And
that's right.
I may have had a propensity, and maybe this is similar for you, but, speaking to the audience who may be watching with us later, for them to understand that you can have an interest and motivation. You may not have someone telling you that you are good at it or not, but if you have that inkling of interest about how the world works around you, how things are quantitative in nature, and how you can quantitate and how you can be logical in making decisions, etc., there is room for you. You don't have to know it all. And to your point about the barriers, I myself attended Chicago Public Schools. I had great
Mhm.
teachers. But there was a lack of resources, hindsight. As a
Mhm.
child, you don't really know sometimes what you don't have. In that day, you didn't. I don't know
Yeah.
about the children now, but
Yeah.
back then we didn't know what we didn't have. We
Mhm.
had and we were happy. And so it wasn't until I went on to college that I realized that I had some deficiencies as it
Mhm.
related to mathematics.
Mhm.
But I did have that teacher that you explained or described that was encouraging. And I also had, as you described, a parent and parents in a village
Mhm.
who supported that. My grandmother, she'll probably see this, she'll hate me for telling this story. But my first entree into math at home, my grandma, I probably shouldn't tell this, but I'm going to tell it. My grandmother and grandfather owned a tavern.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they had a business.
Absolutely.
Okay. My grandmother liked to play games of chance.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I guess you could do things back in the 70s that you just would not supposed to these days. But back then you could take kids with you.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I remember my grandmother showing me the chart and explaining what a trifecta meant. She said,
Yes.
that's 3. And what the odds meant
Mhm.
and how
Mhm.
to read the
Mhm.
odds. And
Mhm.
okay, choose 3. Choose your 3 horses
Mhm.
and make
Mhm.
sure you look at the odds. That was my first entree
That's awesome. I love that story.
into math. I reflected on that much later because when I would go to class is where I didn't necessarily have the academic language.
Mhm.
It would be experiences like counting money or, prefixes, Greek and Latin prefixes. Learning trifecta meant 3 took me very far. So
Mhm.
sometimes I
Mhm.
think minority students or students who are in racial minority groups have home life experiences with science and math that may not be mainstream or connected, but you have them. And
Yeah,
so,
and they're not valued. They're not valued in our educational spaces.
no,
And what's interesting is, you have, Gloria Lesson Billings, Geneva Gay. You have a lot of these people talking about culturally responsive instruction. But when teachers don't understand how to draw those funds of knowledge, how to bring those into the very curriculum that they are teaching, then it does leave underrepresented students in precarious types of position. They have less access. We can scaffold our students up to from like more concrete to abstract stuff, because we know we're in a system that is not going away anytime soon, where students are going to have to, for example, take the SAT, right?
right.
Or take a GRE, or have to take calculus or whatever. So how do we start where people are and think about like community or issues that are important to students, and somehow mathematize some of those things, or to bring in people's, like you said, home experiences with mathematics to hook onto new knowledge, right?
Mhm.
We don't do that as math and science instructors. We just go right in and think that people have understandings of these types of contexts.
Right.
We don't even teach math well to anyone. Let's just put that on the record. And I have 50,000 citations that can back that up, because we focus on procedures, memorization, right? We're not focused on
Computation.
That's right. We're not focused on conceptual understanding and
Right.
really helping students to understand, well, why do you carry the 1? Or why, you know what I'm saying? Like, what really is area besides, length times width? That's all we know, right?
Right.
So, it just becomes magnified, and I think multiplicative or exponential when you have folks who are racialized and minoritized students in these math and science classrooms with an already, system that we just don't teach well, right? So it gets magnified, that experience.
So what would you say to parents? What should parents be doing?
Exposure. All these little STEM camps and robotics and all these kinds of things. We need to expose our kids. And there's a lot of things out there that are free.
Absolutely.
But this country, we're not going to wave the flag to say that it's free. It's hidden. So you have to talk to other people. You have to talk to other parents. Parents have to share the knowledge, because sometimes folks don't want, I'm not telling anybody about this program because
too many people.
Right. But the reality is that we want everyone to have these opportunities. And I would also really start highlighting math that you do at home, from, purchasing houses to, laying carpet in your house, to having a birthday party, to exposing them to very complex budgets, that families have to engage in, especially when money is low. And I know that you probably were in a household where somehow, some way, somebody had $20 and bought 5 bags worth of groceries, right? So there's complexity in that, right? That needs to be understood. But part of it is sort of intergenerational, because we've had so many of us who didn't have good math experiences. And Danny Martin, right down the street, probably from you all, University of Illinois, Chicago, interviewed a lot of parents, and they talked about how their math experiences were racialized, right? And some of them also talked about how they were told, I wasn't good at math, so you're not going to be good at math. So those are discourses. We got to break that, and make sure that we are, telling our kids that they can do anything they want to do, and, helping them to sort of get rid of, negative messages. But, it can be hard because our babies go to school every day and get the potential beaten out of them, not physically beaten, but told through teacher practices, through peer interactions, that you're not smart, that you're not good enough, that you don't belong in math. And those are lies.
Absolutely.
But we have to work together to change that discourse.
Yes. So what advice would you give to a high school student or a community college student considering a career in STEM? What advice do you have for them?
Take as much mathematics as you can. Study together. Don't be isolating yourself because you feel some kind of way that, you don't, oh my God, I should maybe know the answers. No. We are all learning. So study in groups, and ask questions that you don't know. Don't be afraid to do that. And then make us as professors earn our money. So go to the office hours, or, whatever I can't remember what they call it in high school, but, go to the teacher.
Right.
And when you don't understand, that's part of the reason why we get paid. Audience, we get paid to teach your kids. Right. So, and again, because of the way that we have sort of socialized, math and science as this like, you either have it or you don't kind of thing, people are embarrassed. They scared. They don't want to do it. And I'm telling you to shed all that off of you.
Oh, yes.
And, start speaking it, that you are just as capable as anybody else. Absolutely. It may take you a little longer, but that's okay, because a real mathematician, like somebody who actually works as a mathematician, do you think they be solving them problems like in 1 hour? No, it takes them years. So that's the advice that I would give. Take as much math as you can. Don't work in isolation. Ask questions and make us as your professors work.
That is exceptional advice. If you are a high school student, new college student, transfer student at a community college, the message is that you can't do it in isolation. I think that is a big takeaway for me. I know that what you're saying, I've done with my deficiencies in mathematics, and I didn't have to take as much mathematics as you did. I think I had like 4 math classes to do as an undergrad for a degree in biology. But I ended up actually going to a community college for my calculus.
Okay.
Because
and that's completely legit and fine and okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I was struggling at the university, and I don't know, someone told me community colleges are teaching institutions or something about they actually teach you. Actually, I took my calculus and a chemistry at a community college. And so it was a good experience for me because I had an opportunity to learn to work collaboratively. And I had been trying to do a lot of it alone because I felt isolated as sometimes the only woman in the class. And then sometimes I was the only Black. And then sometimes I was the only Black and woman. So, so when you said shed, I'm like saying yes, 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 because I literally like what do I do? Thank goodness that I had good advisors and mentors and support systems outside.
Yes.
But there were definitely times where I did not feel adequate or capable because I've not passed classes before. I've retaken classes, but people see the end product and they think, oh, is this or that. But if you're a student and you're interested, and so the last question I want to ask you is,
can I just say one thing to that, Dr. Robinson? Do you remember the movie Akeelah and the Bee?
Oh, of course.
So do you remember when the professor, he stopped teaching her and he said, you have support all around you, just look around, right? And in that particular movie, there was, I think a young man who was like the community guy that really wasn't that good or whatever. He was like doing some bad stuff, but even he was for Akeelah and was helping her study. And so I just say that to the folks here in the audience, look around. If it's for yourself or if it's for your kids, everybody can somehow support, your community, your kids, in these endeavors around STEM. But it's because of how we have socially constructed it as this thing that we don't see the STEM, we don't see the science, we don't see the math in our, homes because it doesn't look like what's in a textbook. But I'm saying that there's lots of math and science and great thinking happening in our communities. We just have to figure out what that is and highlight it, for everyone to see so that our kids will start saying, oh, okay, yeah, I can be a math teacher. Oh, yeah, I can be a chemist, but a lot of times they have to see it, around them before they can really internalize it, I think, and believe it. But we got to stop them lies. STEM is in our community and we do STEM.
We do STEM. I wrote somewhere in something I wrote before about my experience realizing, and I think I must have been 11 when I realized that we do STEM. So I love how you said that because I didn't know up until then. And it was when I had shout out to Miss Evelyn from John Hope. And my first science teacher, my very first science teacher, who helped me to see that we do science and to make connections between my home life and what she was now teaching us, because that was my first formal science education class. Now you think about that. From pre-K all the way up to 5th grade, I had not had science. We have standards now for kindergartners. For math and science. I don't know, things change. But as we wrap up our conversation here today, what closing advice would you give to those to connect the two as it relates to a career in STEM and teaching?
So you mean becoming a STEM teacher?
Yes.
Like either high school or at the university level?
Right.
Well, I would say that part of what I'm going to talk about on Saturday is like this notion of like pre-work. So, I mean, it just has to be said. We know that STEM has really been a space of like elitism and hegemony. That just means like dominant, white, male.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody at this point in the world would like agree. People understand that, right? This is why you got NSF and all of these other places trying to give money to broaden participation, right? So part of that is we all have to understand that historical story. Because if we don't start from there, then we don't really have a way to kind of dig out and change things. So I'm talking about white individuals, or let's just say uncritical individuals that want to become STEM teachers. Like you have to understand that so that you can know how to begin to disrupt it and learn how to use your own privilege to, you know, support, you know, students, underrepresented students that want to be in this space. So there's a lot of internal work that we have to do as STEM educators. You know, we have to unlearn issues of meritocracy, for example, because there are some Black folks that are working harder than everybody else, 25,000 degrees, and still can't get into, you know, let's just say the national academies, or, you know what I'm saying? So meritocracy is a myth. It's, you know, that means you work hard, just work hard, and those things will come to you. And so if you're a STEM educator, you know, you have to understand these things about math and science, how our country was founded and, you know, where we've been and where we're trying to go. And then I think you have to adopt and internalize and be in the struggle about diversification in terms of race, gender, you know, sex, whatever, right? If you don't have that, then you're probably perpetuating the system that we already have, which is not supportive of, you know, multiracial folks or, you know, Black and brown folks to come into this space. So I think especially if you're a STEM educator or STEM teacher, you have to do those things. Because of the way that our system is, and it's so entrenched. It's not any one individual's fault. We've developed this system, but it's through individuals and our collective action and our continual sort of critical thinking and critiquing and taking action that will change the system, right? So those are some things that I would, you know, give advice to you know, folks that are trying to get a career in STEM, and you got to pay it forward now. So, you know, when people deposit in you and support you, don't get on a high horse. You have to turn around and reach back and pull up a few more people.
It's right? Our turn.
Whether you're Black, white, whatever, you have to reach back, and it has to be this sort of reciprocity kind of situation where, you know, there's give and take, and pay it forward.
Well, Dr. Joseph, you have definitely paid it forward. You are paying it forward. To be a teacher is a noble profession. To be a teacher is an honorable profession, no matter what the people say.
That's right. I agree.
It is honorable. It is noble. It is worthy. It is worthwhile. It is rewarding at times. It's up, it's down, it's highs, it's lows.
That's right.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm not going to be anything other than a STEM educator. That's awesome. That's about your purpose. And I'd like to encourage students who are especially approaching transferring from community colleges to remember the advice to take the math courses at the community college that you need, take the STEM courses, study in groups, do not isolate yourself. And as Dr. Joseph said, seek out your instructors, seek out your professors and your support network. We are here for you to get through because the profession needs you. Children need you, and the next generation needs you. So, Dr. Joseph, I think we've covered teachers, parents, in-service teachers, high school students. We've covered it all. Hopefully someone gathers something from this that will encourage them to move forward, I'm quite sure that they will. Thank you for your time. I can't wait until Saturday. We have even more registrants.
Oh my goodness, that's
It
exciting.
is very exciting. We have a crowded field who are coming to hear us on Saturday, October 17th.
Wow. Okay.
And you can search Elmhurst Noyce.
Okay.
The registration link is bit.ly/Elmhurst Noyce. And it is open to concerned citizens and all the above that I just mentioned. Dr. Joseph is going to be our keynote speaker. We have Dr. Benjamin Dickman, who is going to be coming to us to talk about social justice and mathematics. I mean, he's going to bring it. And then our second breakout is going to be with Dr. Ayanna Brown. She is going to bring it.
Yes, she is.
Content area literacy in STEM. So we have to give thanks to the National Science Foundation.
Yes.
For the opportunity for us to sit with the Honorable Dr. Joseph.
But I also want to just let everybody know that, it takes a lot of hard work, and Dr. Robinson, I know she didn't do this alone, but, it can be difficult to get these big grants to support this type of learning.
And so let him.
Yeah. So y'all make sure you thank Dr. Robinson.
Oh my God.
I'm serious. I mean, we know that, it can be challenging, to get money, and for the National Science Foundation to see this as a viable, conference to support the learning of, everybody that you just named, Dr. Robinson, along the trajectory is really important. But to have the stamina and, stick-to-itness to actually get that grant done takes a lot of work. So I just want people to know that. So thank you for writing the grant.
Oh my gosh. It took a lot.
I know.
It took a lot. But here we are.
Here we are. Yep. And we hope to take it to the next level. We got to take some action steps.
We will. So I'm just so excited again. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for those who will watch this later.
Yeah.
Because we are in the middle of the day and people have jobs and school and students, but we know you will be watching. This is for you.
That's right.
For you. Thank you, Dr. Joseph.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I look forward to seeing you Saturday.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.